So what were you saying? As-salaamu alaykum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, RidwanullahFamily. Jazakumullahu khair for tuning in to another episode of Ridwanullah TV, your source to Islamically maximize every single area of your life in this dunya and in the akhirah by the grace, will, and for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All praise and thanks are due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our creator, owner, and sustainer. And may the peace and blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be upon the most esteemed leader and most honorable teacher, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, his family, his companions, and those who follow him until the day of judgment. Allahumma ameen. And today, alhamdulillah rabbil alameen, I have another interview for you guys, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala, with my brother Idrissa. And inshallah, we're gonna get to a lot of the details of his goals, his dreams, and his current focus, and what he hopes to achieve on a general scale, and just a little bit of the life lessons that he's learned along the way. The thing that attracted me to him the most, mashallah, even though he might not like me saying this, is his focus on the Qur'an, and his purity of intention and sincerity. So the more I could sit with individuals like that and learn from them, the better I feel like my life will be, and I hope that the better that your life will be, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. So without further ado, jazakallahu khair, Brother Idrissa, for joining me today. Would you like to introduce yourself to our viewers, bi-idhnillah? Just kind of your name, where you're from, what's your career path, and what you're passionate about.
Oh yeah, sure. Thank you for having me, by the way. Bismillah. So my name is Idrissa Ndaiye. I'm from Mali. Grew up in Mali. Spent a lot of time there with family.
Okay.
And I spent the later part of my years here in the United States studying economics for about, I want to say, now 10 years now in US.
Okay. MashaAllah.
So combined with getting some experience working with a company doing data analysis for them.
Okay. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
And what are your passions outside of that?
Outside of that, I spend a lot of time in rec centers,
Okay.
working out.
Yeah. Hitting the gym. I think I saw you a couple of times here and there.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. That's amazing. So, why economics?
Why economics? Very good question. So I'm from a pretty poor country, and fundamentally, since I was young, the questions that I had were centered into questions of economics, right?
Okay.
So we go to school to learn how this world works, okay?
The word, what word?
The world, like
the world, okay.
The world we live in, how
yeah.
it works.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the good thing about schools is that it explains you exactly how the world works. For instance, if you take subjects like physics, they have a really good explanations about the world, okay?
Okay.
You take subjects like, if you take subjects like history, right, they kind of go through what went on and stuff.
Yeah.
Now, if you take economics, oh wow, now it's a different ball game. So they're talking in terms of money now. So you understand how this entire ecosystem is working. And economics had answers to a lot of the questions that I primarily had since I was young. So, for instance, I remember one time I was with my brother. Then I asked me this question. I said, and then back then it used to be they call it the French currency, like the franc français. And then when we used to go there for vacation and stuff, I noticed, it's one of their currency might worth 500 of mine. And then I was asking my brother, how come we cannot just say, okay, our currency, one of them is 500 of theirs,
Yeah.
And then he laughed so much, and then he was like, okay, you will understand later. So
how old?
I might have been a boy, right? I was just a boy.
What's the rough estimate of age?
I want to say maybe 11, I'm not sure.
Subhanallah. So you had the curiosity of economics since then?
Since then, it was pretty young.
Yeah. MashaAllah.
So as I went through our school system kind of kind of direct you to whatever you're interested in.
Yeah.
And usually in Mali, it's big. So as soon as you get into high school, you start specializing, right? So you have to pick either science or kind of what they call literature or something like that.
That's like pretty much opposite of here.
Yeah. So I had a big problem when I got here actually because of that. And then you had this other field that was not very common, but it's more like economics. So you had three now. So you have the science, the literature, and the economics.
Okay.
So naturally, I just went for the economics. So first off, I started with science because the school I was at did not have the economics thing. It was only based on a particular place. It was very locked. So,
alhamdulillah.
So then as soon as that came into the school, I said, wow, that's actually what I want to do.
How did you know that's what you wanted to do?
So I took the class, and then it went amazing, and then I said, wow.
What does amazing mean? Like, in terms?
So it was interesting, I guess, in terms of interest.
Okay.
Stuff, right?
So does that mean like you didn't realize how much time you were putting in? Like maybe 10 hours to you felt like 10 minutes. Was that a part of the amazing part of it, or did you feel like you were getting lost in it?
No, not at all. It was more like you will see how some subject they just capture your interest, and this was one of the case, right?
Okay, so that's how you knew this was like more of a career path for you.
I mean, I guess back then I did not see it as a career, more of an opportunity to learn something that I was interested in, right?
Okay, so do you think that's going to be something that you think? Well, not think, but like, do you take it as a career path? Do you see it as a career path?
It definitely helped me, right? It shaped my career so far. So, I mean, it was much more in line than what I was studying. So at that school, the program did not exist. In the entire country, the program exists in only one place. Yeah. And then my school just happened to open it, and then they advertised it, and kind of got interested in it. And I said, okay, let me take a class and see. And then I switched my old major to it.
MashaAllah. And it was your older brother that you asked this question to?
No.
Younger brother?
You mean the question that
question about the money?
Of course, older
brother.
Yeah, much older brother.
I see.
The oldest of the family.
MashaAllah. What kind of response did he give you besides, I think
he just laughed and then he said, you will understand later, okay? Yeah. I said, okay, I mean, so you see how sometimes you answer kids like that, because at that initial stage, maybe it's too complex for them to understand.
Yeah, that's very true. So, what did you do college? Did you go to high school or college back home, or did you do it here?
I did some college back home, actually.
Some college back home?
Yeah, and then I transferred to country.
To Utah or a different state?
Utah. I've been to Utah the entire time.
How long?
10, 11 years now.
10, 11 years. MashaAllah. Wow, that's a long time.
I know, I'm Utah now. People joke you are a Mormon now.
Yeah, at least we can have 4 wives, right?
Yeah.
That's the joke, by the way. It's not real. It's like that's what people think. Utahns, people who live in Utah, like they think they can get married to as many wives as they want.
Right.
Because that's what the TV show portrays, you know.
Right.
But alhamdulillah, that's really good. The other question that I have is, so did you finish your bachelor's degree?
I finished it in the U.S., yeah.
You finished your bachelor's degree in the U.S.?
That's right.
Did you go further into your education, like a master's, PhD, or the other?
Yes, I also did a PhD also in the U.S.
You did a PhD in the U.S.?
Yeah, so I went...
And master's?
Yes.
Master's and PhD?
No, master's and bachelor, sorry.
Master's and bachelor's, okay. Because
that
was like, maybe sometimes you go straight into PhD, so I didn't
Right. So actually my master's was actually a first year PhD, if you will.
Okay.
It was a first year PhD, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like an extended program that you could have went into.
No, okay, so here is the deal. So it comes from economics. So I wanted to study economics.
Yeah.
But in economics, you have the mainstream and you have the orthodox. Okay. So in the United States, the University of Utah happens to be the only university, along with another one in New York, that is teaching a form of economics that is not the mainstream, right? It's an orthodox economics.
Yeah.
So I wanted to have a taste of it. The reason I say this is because I felt about it, the mainstream economics, and I've seen this being applied into our countries, like the country I'm from, Mali and stuff.
The orthodox or the mainstream?
The mainstream.
Okay.
I mean, since that's what everybody is using. So what I mean is this big organization, the IMF and everything. Their philosophy is all mainstream, right? Yeah. And I sit down there and I look at what they are doing into these countries, and I think, man, it's not working. Okay, so maybe what we need is. Maybe what I need to study is something maybe different. But it's kind of risky because if you study that, then even you might be even limited in terms of the job opportunities and stuff like that. Yeah. So I wanted to have a taste of at least have a glance to the program.
Yeah.
So that's why I decided to say, okay, let me take the first year PhD, right? And then do it as a master. It's kind of see what these guys are talking about. Is it even something to look into and stuff? Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. So I really want to get to the Qur'an. I want to focus on that majority of the time. Right. But economics is fascinating to me as well. Right. And so can you give us a general idea of what economics is and the main components of it?
Right. So, and now trying to define economics has been complex since it has extended to so many things, right? So it's you have economics of education, right? You have financial economics, you have economics of development, you have labor economics, you have all these things. But in general, I guess the traditional way of defining is that is interested in kind of exploring the wealth of a country, right?
Okay.
So, for instance, you see all these business people that count their money, right?
Yeah.
So basically, an economist is a business person for the state, if you want. So you have economics of trade. They sell the commodity of the country, so the cotton and stuff like that. Those guys are only mainly focused on that. And anything dealing with efficiency and stuff like that. So it's kind of hard to define now in terms of.
So it's like.
So maybe I should look into.
No, alhamdulillah. I mean, the way that you gave me bits and pieces, I took economics at the university as well, but. I mean, obviously that was like maybe like 1 or 2 semesters or a year compared to this being your career. So it's like I'm fascinated by what you're saying because these are the things that I think about. I just don't think about it in the economic context. I don't think about it from I think the perspective that you have on it is actually a good thing. Does that change your way of dealing with people, your way of living in occupation? Having the economic mindset?
Yeah, I mean, so what you read, what you learn, it kind of shape the way you do things, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can see that happening.
Alhamdulillah. That's good. So there's a lot of things that I want to ask you, but I want to just kind of pick and choose, inshallah. Okay. So, mashallah, you're well educated, mashallah, both of the worlds in terms of the secular world and the economics, and also the sacred world with the Qur'an that you're studying and the different subject matters that you're learning, correct?
Well, I don't know if I'm very learning on that, but yeah.
Alhamdulillah.
Let's say I do my best, right?
Alhamdulillah. So let's take a step back. Let's look at your big goals and dreams. What are your big goals and dreams in life?
To be honest with you, in life, every day I've tried to to be the best I could, like every day improve myself, right? As a person, as a contributor to the society I live in, to this world, right? So with that, both, I mean, everything is helping out. Everything is working together, you know what I'm saying? I don't see things in having silos and stuff. So my
having
silos, so like so in different, so I think everything.
Oh, okay. So instead of like two separate things,
this
world,
yeah,
okay,
the secular,
okay.
the I think it's all
okay,
all unified and it's all one to me. It's all a way. It's all embedded into Islam, a way which is just a way of living, which means it has the secular into it. If you want, it's all up to you to make the secular sacred, right? So if you go out every day, earning a living, if you go with the intention, the proper intention is ibadah for you. If you just go out and just make money, I don't know what that's gonna be, but
there's a lot of secular. Well, I guess now I see it as a whole combination.
To me, it's all one. But anyway,
that's an interesting perspective. I battle with that a lot. So where did that come from for you? Did you always have that perception of life?
Well, from what I know from Islam at least is that right. I mean, you're always in a state of everything for you is ibadah as long as you have the proper intention to it. Why you make up your intention and then you do it. It reminds me of an interesting, I don't want to say sect, but philosophy. I don't know, like a group in Islam from Senegal. They are called the Murid. These guys they are in two states in life. Either you're doing ibadah or you're working. So to them, it's either white and they are the hardest working people you can find. But that's kind of what I see things. Not as a murid, but as if I'm doing something, I make the proper intention that okay, this is for something for Allah and stuff, and inshallah.
Do you feel like that takes a lot of the struggle out of your life?
I feel like it puts things in perspective, okay? So for instance, if I go out, I'm trying to earn a living, and then I start with Bismillah, and then I say, okay, I'm gonna go out today to earn a living so that I can feed myself, I can put food on the table. How then am I gonna be able to cheat when I'm doing business or something? How then am I gonna be? And then I'm gonna try to do things for to my best, the best of my ability. So kind of each time I remember to say Bismillah, it's like it's also reminding me do your best in this and remember Allah. Don't you see what I mean? Yeah,
it's kind of like refreshing your intention and sincerity.
It's kind of always telling me don't forget that there is Allah is watching you. Okay, just do your best and stuff. It's not an easy thing, but I always try to do that. To remember to start with the big Basmala and put things in perspective.
Alhamdulillah. What does community service play in your life? What role does community service play in your life?
So usually I'm a busy person, but I try to serve as much as possible. For instance, if there is events at our local mosque or things, and I try to volunteer for it and stuff. I've not been directly involved with an organization specializing in stuff like that, like distributing food and stuff like that. And that's because also because of a schedule that is pretty busy and stuff. I don't want to commit up front, but if there is something that comes on the way that I can
contributing to your capacity.
Then I can.
I think that's what I kind of did myself too, where I wasn't. Before I used to be a part of the whole projects and everything else, and I just kind of stepped back doing my own thing, and then do what I can along with that. So
Right, right.
It's a really good approach.
And one time I tried once, and then nothing was working because I did not have enough time to put into there, and it was also distracting me from other things I was doing. I said, okay, if you want to do something, just give it all. So don't just play around with people. Yeah, because one of the biggest problem non-profits have is they rely on volunteers, which means free work.
Free labor.
Yeah, but the problem with that is, well, it comes back to economics, it's incentive, right? We are human beings.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
I like how you tied it into, because that's what I was thinking too, is like the economic part is real.
Yeah, so it's not easy, right?
So you opened a can of worms for yourself.
So it was.
This is what I'm interested in right now, because the reason why I say that is because we have to pay the bills. We have to do these things.
Right.
With the same token, we have to, contribute to our ummah and do all these things that we need.
Right.
How do we keep our intentions pure? Can we get paid for doing community work? Do you think?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think. Well, it all depends of what the project is about and how much budget is available for the project, right? But I think as an economist, I do know that incentives matter. So you have to incentivize people. I mean, a lot of these people will do things for the sake of Allah, but still kind of helping them, giving them a nudge. I mean,
that's very true. What about like people who say, they judge people's intention and they say, oh, he's only doing it for the money.
Right.
Like, what are your thoughts on that?
What I mean is, it should not be something too much. You should not give too much, but you should give as a token of appreciation. So sometimes some people are even driving. I mean, you don't know people's reality. They are spending their own money basically to do this.
Right.
And
that could be short from their rent or their gas.
And gas and stuff money. If you can give them something as a token to kind of cover up for that, or even at the end just give them a gift that make them happy, so they feel valued too, even though they don't need it. I mean, they are doing things for other reasons, but I don't know how to put this. It's just another incentive for them to do things right.
Something to consider as well.
Because I also remember one time I got a grant to set up this program, and then the program was relying on volunteers. And I had such a hard time, these people showing up and stuff like that. So I was in both sides of the spectrum, so I kind of have an idea of, okay, so if this was me, you see. So what I mean is, if you feel like you're really busy, really busy, I mean, don't just commit to something, because this guy has to run a program. Don't commit to it if you cannot make it all the time, right?
Fulfill your promise.
So that's why I remove myself from joining organizations, right? So what I do is I just look at one-time opportunity coming around. For instance, they say, this Friday there is this thing coming, we need volunteers. Then I look at my Friday schedule, I say, I can actually make it. Then it's easier for me in that way than committing to something.
Committing out of guilt.
Right?
Isn't that what most of us do?
Yeah.
So I think, that's amazing, wallahi, mashallah. It kind of validates a lot of the beliefs that I was kind of holding in, but really, I believed in them, but to hear you say it and believing in it, and actually, being a part of your principles in life, it kind of solidifies my belief as well, alhamdulillah. So that's the correct way of doing it, because I know a lot of people, when I was, going to school, a lot of people, including myself, were overcommitting to a lot of these projects and organizations. But when bringing it back to the economics, we have the demand, but what is the supply, right?
Right.
The supply is limited in comparison to the demand.
You're right.
So is that something that you consciously look at every time? In terms of like, okay, this is all the projects and all the opportunities that are there. This is how much I have to give, so I'm gonna...
Yeah, let me put it this way. So I used to be really like, okay, each time there is an opportunity, just go for it. So what I mean is I was I had too many things to do, and none of them was working, right? So what I came up with, I said, wait a second, okay? So you're doing all these things,
but there's no fruits to the labor.
Yeah. So why don't you just focus on your thing, okay? Focus on these few areas, and then just make those right, instead of having your effort divided into all these. I remember I used to volunteer for doing analysis for all these non-profit organizations. So we had this guy. So all he does is does analysis for non-profit organizations, right? So looking at their data and then finding things for them. And I was just volunteering for that because those are things that I'm interested in. But it involved a lot of work. Like you have to call people, and then at lunchtime I will be calling all these people and stuff, and then I have to collect data, and it was just not working. Even though I was sleeping late and everything, I finally said, you know what? Instead of doing a job that is not good enough for this guy, maybe I should just tell him, hey, I really appreciate the opportunity, but I feel like I'm not having enough time to dedicate to your project. So
mashallah, I think there's a lot for me to take from that in terms of just focusing on the key elements in my life instead of overdoing it.
Well, if you can do it, I don't know. I don't know about that. But all I'm saying is, if you feel like while you're doing a lot of things and there are some of them that are not being you're not doing it at the level that you want it to. I think you might have to cut down on some of the projects you're involved in and try to focus. Do the things right.
Alhamdulillah. What does the Qur'an mean to you?
Quran to me is guidance, right? So it's helping me every day, kind of answer to the call of Allah. That's what it is for me. Making me a better person, inshallah.
Inshallah. Have you so I noticed the main reason why, as I mentioned in the beginning, I was attracted into interviewing you. MashaAllah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala increase barakah and protect you from anything evil. The reason why I was interested is because I realized you're so focused on the Qur'an, mashallah. Where does your focus on the Qur'an come from? What motivates you to focus on the Qur'an and give it its due time and its proper effort?
Right. So for a long time I've been thinking about learning Qur'an more seriously and stuff, and just didn't have the opportunity to. For instance, I remember I used to go to this, so first of living in youth, when I first came here, there was none of these duxis, none of these mosque and stuff, right? And I used to live in the south side of the state, which is 90% Mormon, right? So good luck finding even a
south side of the city or the state, the whole state.
South of Utah.
Southern Utah.
Southern city, I guess. So Provo area.
Okay.
So basically living among Mormons. So good luck even finding a teacher, right? I've been looking for a teacher for a while and no teacher and stuff. So it's not that easy, right? So I guess I never really had the opportunity to learn it well.
So it feels like a lot of the focus comes from having teachers now.
Yeah, finally taking advantage of the opportunity.
Did you try to memorize it before having teachers?
Yeah. On my own, I would. So first off, I did not even know how to read Arabic, right?
Subhanallah.
So, but slowly, I remember I used to go online and doing myself, and from there, sometimes you see these brothers at the mosque and they will help you a little bit. So that way I got a little bit of it. Then when I was at the university, I actually took Arabic courses.
Which university?
This is Brigham Young University, BYU.
Okay.
It's a Mormon university.
In Provo.
In Provo.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, they happen to be really good at languages because they do a lot of missionary work.
Yeah, yeah.
So the program in Arabic was excellent.
Okay.
So I enrolled into that class. That was amazing. In few semesters, in like 2 semesters, I could talk basically in Arabic. So that gave me some foundation. And from there, I started reading directly the Qur'an and then listening to the Sheikh at the same time. When I was younger, I had some verses memorized.
Yeah.
So I would read those verses that I already memorized, right? So it was easier to go that way.
Yeah.
Then I started expanding to other surahs that I did not memorize. And slowly I've been doing it that way.
Just taking a step at a time?
Yeah, by myself and listening to the sheikhs and this and that.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah. Right. How do you feel like the Quran has changed you? Do you see like a difference? I don't know if you had a period in your life where you weren't focused on the Quran or anything of that nature, and now where you're giving sufficient, at the very least, sufficient amount of time.
Right. So before, what I used to do is just read the translations, right?
Yeah.
So I would read the translation from cover to cover. But
Subhanallah.
But even the translations, like I could tell, like some of the translations that I got, for instance, I could tell the sheikh translating it doesn't even master so I will read this in French, right? But I will see a lot of mistakes on the things. I mean, it's grammatical mistakes and stuff like and then stuff that don't really make sense. So I can tell the sheikh who translated he has done his best, but I can still tell that he doesn't master the language that he's translating it to.
Yeah.
And I read it in English. I mean, same problems. All the translations that I got, even sometimes if the thing is right, I mean, sometimes you just don't get it. There is this thing. It's just so I'm like, okay, why not get it from the source itself? Okay, just learn Arabic. I mean, I've learned a lot of languages like that. Why I've learned English? I was not born with it.
Yeah.
I remember at one time I learned German pretty well. I knew more German than English, and that was an intensive program in German. And in few weeks I was able to start speaking German. I'm like, so it's not impossible. I know I can just pick up Arabic. Why not?
Yeah.
I just have to study, put the time in.
Yeah.
I think the main problem was having time. Time is the main issue. If you have time, you can do anything you want. So I said, okay, let me set a goal of actually getting this text from the original source it was revealing.
Yeah.
So that's why I focus much on it that way now. But even before, I was just reading cover to cover. That helped too, because in terms of reading it and thinking about it and stuff like that.
How many languages do you know?
So I speak about 3. I speak French, Bamana, English fluently, and a little bit of Arabic now.
So that's
4, 3.5, I guess.
3.5, yeah.
Even not half, 3 and a little bit.
Alhamdulillah. What's the main language in your country, Mali?
Mali, the main language, the official language of the country is French, so that means everything is run in French. But then we have about 15 more languages that people speak locally, and the most dominant language of those languages is Bamana.
Bamana. And is that like the natural language there instead of the colonized language?
Yeah, that's one of the 15 to 16 local
different local languages.
Meaning in the same country you have like 15 languages spoken in within, I think.
Not including like the colonized languages like French and all of these other ones.
No, just
really?
Just local languages, yeah.
Are they like completely different or?
Completely different. So so you have actually about 13, 15 ethnic groups. Think of it as a tribe. So each ethnic group speaks his own language, has his own way of doing things like own clothing, own even type of work sometimes. Like,
Subhanallah. Because the reason why I ask is because first of all, I didn't even know that. Number two, it's because like the country I'm from, Somalia, there is one language, multiple dialects. Right?
These are not dialects. These are completely different languages. And these groups have been living together for a long time in harmony and peace and everything.
MashaAllah. So it wasn't any tribalistic wars and conflicts?
Yeah, a few times here and there you might have it, but usually, in
Nothing
general, these have been living
MashaAllah.
together.
MashaAllah. And is Mali a Muslim country?
90 to 95, according to whichever, 95% Muslim.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah. That's amazing. What's your favorite surah in the Qur'an?
That's a tough question.
And I hope you like the fact that I'm just kind of yanking you everywhere. It kind of gives you a little bit of
a... So there are a few surahs that stand out that I like a lot, like Surah Doha, for instance. Lots of different surahs that I like.
Why do you like Surah Al-Duha?
Wow, it's an amazing surah, and kind of reminds me to kind of my path and stuff, right? When it says, "Have you not found you lost and we guided you," right? And all these things, "Have you not found you poor and we made you rich," and stuff like that. I mean, it's an amazing surah, to be honest with you.
Speaks a lot to your story.
Speaks a lot to my story, and honestly to everybody's story, right? Who was guided before? I mean,
at some stage in life we're all lost, right? Subhanallah.
And when I think about it, right? I mean, who is feeding you? I mean, it's amazing, right?
Subhanallah.
When I think about it, right?
Allah is amazing and most merciful.
So.
Subhanallah. What's your favorite ayah?
Ayah-wise, let's see. When you ask these questions, I have so many of them, so I just have to pick one for you. There is this one that says, "God is closer to you than your jugular vein," right? There are so many. What
does that particular ayah mean to you?
What that means to me is God is taking care of me. God is there for me, has my back. So I just have to do the things that He asked me to do, I guess. So.
Subhanallah. What was the you know when you read the Quran sometimes and you just regularly reading, and then all of a sudden you just stop and it grabs you, it holds you.
Right.
It doesn't let you go. Right. What was the last ayah for you? That was like it choked you up and you couldn't move forward from it.
Can't think of an experience like that. Sorry.
You can't, you said? Or?
Yeah, cannot think of the. So usually it's the way you're describing it, right?
I guess for me it's like in Surah I think Tabarak. No, the one after that. It's like missing Noon. You know when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about the people who were in the gardens and they didn't let any of the poor people take from their garden, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala basically destroyed all of their garden as a lesson for them, and then they're just saying, "Oh, woe to me," you know, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "كَذَلِكَ الْعَذَابُ." وَالْعَذَابُ الْآخِرَةِ أَكْبَرُ لَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ. So for me that it hits me hard, because anytime I go through any loss or little pain, I remember that ayah tells me this is the taste that you're having in this life. The akhirah is way worse.
More worse. MashaAllah, that's a good one.
So just if you can think about it along the way of our conversation, inshallah, feel free to share with me. But what if you had a message to share with us about the Qur'an and its importance, what would it be?
The importance of Quran. Well, you have all these that you can go through, but really for me it's it's just like a different world. It's like the one thing I do like about it is that it keeps you engaged.
Okay.
Meaning, first off, if you memorize one surah, now you're always thinking you don't want to lose it. So what that means is you're always going back to it and then trying to memorize it. What that does is you're always setting time for Allah. Versus somebody who don't memorize the Quran or don't really worry about losing it and stuff. He doesn't have that time. He's not gonna have that time of ibadah that you have, because you are always thinking, oh, let me read one juz today because I don't want to lose this. Every day everybody has a program, okay? So everybody will be like, okay, I'm gonna be reading at least 2 surah a day, or I'm gonna do half a juz a day, or I'm gonna do this. Why? Because you don't want to lose it. But really, usually that's what you're thinking, you don't want to lose it, but usually what it is you actually have the tendency to go back to it. Even if it's not because you don't want to lose it, you just want to go back to it.
It's a natural inclination.
It's a natural inclination. So what I'm saying is, what that does is for 30 minutes, you're sitting down with the Quran.
Subhanallah. Making time for Allah is what I
Yeah. I mean, you're getting all this, and you don't get this if you don't, like, people who don't worry about the Quran much, like, I mean, they don't worry about losing it and stuff like that. I mean, they are not into it. Yeah. They never had that. So that 30 minutes of them is probably video game time, or
YouTube or Facebook.
Or something else, right? Another thing,
we waste so much time. It sucks.
I mean, this forces you to have time for it. And the other thing is, it always gives you something to do. Meaning, I used to have this, okay? I used to always carry a reading book with me. Because sometimes I notice you can go to some places and waste sometimes, and you, like, for instance, if you're waiting for a brother and the brothers always show up in African time, right? Yeah. And then you tell, like I did to you today, you tell them let's meet at 11, they show up at 11:30. Yeah. That's 30 minutes. And in that 30 minutes, you're waiting, you're thinking this guy is going to show up. Yeah. That 30 minutes, if you're not careful, that 30 minutes gone, doing nothing, watching your phone, doing this and that. So I used to always carry a reading book with me. So if somebody is late or something, I can read at least so many pages. I'm like, okay, I don't care anymore. You can show up whenever you want, right?
You know, I have a hard time with that, with time management.
Time management is a challenge for everybody. So what I'm saying is, during those time periods where you waiting in line for food and stuff, you always have something to do.
Subhanallah.
Like, because you can say, okay, let me go over this. In your mind, you're just going over that. I mean, it's amazing. What I'm thinking is, this,
so it feels like a piece of heaven for you.
Yeah, if you have the Quran with you, it's done. You can just, I mean, even if they put you in jail with nothing, no book, nothing, you have something with you, is what I'm trying to tell you.
That's amazing perspective.
Yeah, you always have something with you. If you have the Quran, you don't need anything. I mean, you always have something with you that you can go over and ponder and do whatever you want. It's amazing.
MashaAllah. Alhamdulillah. I'm going to ask you one question, and then we're going to take it back to your childhood, inshallah. And then we're going to move forward and finish the interview, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. But before that, I noticed that your focus on the value of time is important. That you value time and you make good use of it. Why is time so important to you? And what are the tips and tricks that you can give me and the viewers to utilize our time effectively and efficiently?
Well, for me, to be honest with you, is getting into so many projects that I have. I mean, so many things that I have that are time consuming. Yeah.
But they're not anything.
Huh?
They're specific. They're
That's what I mean is, if you pick the Quran alone, I mean, you could fill up your time with Quran and everything is gone. But what I'm saying is, besides Quran, you have other things going on. Yeah. For 8 hours a day, you're working and stuff, and all those. So what I'm saying is, for me, for instance, I don't have time for TV or any of that, to be honest with you. And time management is a challenge for me, like for everybody, to be honest with you, in this country, because this country is just fast-paced and everybody has to do some type of time management. Otherwise, you're not gonna be able to achieve things, you know. Mm-hmm. I myself, I need to be to be more rigorous on this too, on time management. But the way my day is structured in such a way that it's always every piece is already set, so I know exactly like right. So,
Yeah.
but my time could be more managing into specifics, right? Into
Yeah.
okay.
There's always room for improvement.
Always room for improvement.
Yeah.
Always.
So you have your schedule on a daily basis. Do you set it weekly, monthly? How do you?
So
how do you go about
it
that?
doesn't fluctuate too much. So it's a
So you have a set schedule.
Yeah,
You just go
I know.
execute the whole time.
Execute the whole to keep on going
Okay.
over and over and over.
How did you select the goals in your life that then the rest of it is just kind of blocked out for you? How do you come about that process? I see a lot, because for me, I do a lot of coaching and consulting with individuals for their goals and dreams.
Right.
And I think that's one thing I battle with, even though I don't battle with it as much as I did before.
Right.
But for you, it's like a set and done thing. It's like, this is my priorities, these are my goals, and I'm doing them.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I could do better. So what I mean by that, I used to have a paper before. I used to have a week. Every time you see me, in my pocket, I have a calendar with me, and on that I write everything, right? So eventually, what happened is just I've noticed so everything is the same basically, that week over week, right?
And then
so
just kind of became a habit.
It just got ingrained into my mind. But what I'm saying is the way I was doing it is much better, because then you could actually pinpoint things that you could say specifically these specific chapters and stuff, then and then also like you could look at long term, short term, long term. But the way I'm doing it right now I don't think it's the best way. But
it's doable. It's working, but it's not.
It's working, but it's not the most efficient way. It reminds me of one of the advice of Imam Ghazali, who says just if you have a schedule and you do this schedule thing, stick to it. And I remember the most challenging thing for me was sticking to it. Right? You have a schedule going on, and this brother just calls you, right? This friend just called you, and I mean, he just messes up everything. Okay, having the discipline of sticking to it
and saying no to other people.
Yeah, this is kind of because these guys, I mean, they can just let's. It's hard to say
Make
no
it so
to a
simple.
brother. Yeah. It's hard to say no to brothers, and but yeah.
Alhamdulillah. What was your childhood like?
Yeah, I was just a very simple boy. Like grew up in Mali, no problem. Just usually the days.
With mother and father?
Mother and father, big family.
Are they still alive, and family members and everybody?
Alhamdulillah, my father is still alive. I still have a lot of family back there. My mom passed away. Allah rahamha. Yeah, but everything was normal, and just usually you go to school, and then after that I spend a lot of time doing basketball or on the basketball court, and those were
basketball.
Those were the things I was into. Right? That's it. Nothing really complicated.
Back in Mali, you used to play basketball.
That was what I liked.
What about here?
Here, actually, it's amazing. Like when I was in.
Don't tell me you switched to soccer.
I switched to nothing. So when I came here, so I remember I used to be in Mali. I would wake up at 3 a.m. and stuff just to watch basketball games, because it's happening here and there is a time. A time.
Why not soccer?
So that's a good question, because in Mali everybody is into soccer.
Yeah.
But I think early on I switched to basketball because it was just.
How old?
Maybe it's 12, 13, I don't know. I was young, 13, 12, up to, took a long time since I was.
Alhamdulillah, maybe we can play sometime.
Yeah.
I like basketball a lot.
Like the thing is, since I got here, I've not played basketball anymore. Like
we can take the rust off your skills, inshallah. But when you have time, and maybe
we can definitely
schedule 30 minutes or an hour or something.
Yeah, why not?
Inshallah. We'll see if you're competitive or if I am.
For sure, yeah.
Inshallah. What was the most pleasurable moment in your life?
Wow, that's a tough question. These are things that I don't usually think about.
Yeah.
But there's few milestones that are achieved. One of them is kind of actually traveling from my country to here for study. That was a big happy day for me. A big day, to be honest with you. Happy and lot of mixed emotion there, because it was the first time I was leaving mom and dad and just doing it on my own, like a big boy, right?
Yeah. How old?
I was like 20, something like that. Yeah. So that was a good day.
Which was more dominant? Which feeling was more dominant, the positive or the negative?
Happiness. Mostly positive, but what I mean
There's
is
a little bit of fear.
Yeah, well, you have fear. You're leaving family, a lot of sacrifice there, like leaving your mom. Lot of things, and you don't know what's ahead.
Yeah.
So it was a turning point.
By yourself?
Yeah, by myself. So it was a turning point. So it was in my life for sure. But this was something I always wanted to do. I wanted to study in the best universities. I mean, the best country, the best people at my field, and that's what I got.
Alhamdulillah.
And having that opportunity is amazing.
So that's a really good feeling that you've had, and I'm pretty sure your family was very proud of you.
Yeah, everybody was happy too.
Alhamdulillah. What was the most painful time of your life?
Definitely losing my mom was very. Still have to recover for that, but it was very, very challenging.
How so?
Well, it's, to be honest with you, she was the main person in my life. I was pretty much living for her. So I was like, I had all these dreams for her. Oh, I'm gonna save this money, send her this car. She's gonna be so happy, and this and that. I mean, you get the mindset, right?
Yeah,
and it's just amazing. But it's life. Sooner or later, things happen,
Alhamdulillah, may Allah have mercy on her. And for all the viewers to make dua for her, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, and all of the Muslimin that have passed and all those to come. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on her and grant her jannatul, firdaus, alaykum. What was that period like when that love, that motivation was taken back?
It was tough. It was really tough.
Was there a period where you kind of was like in a depression mode and you just didn't have any motivation?
No, I never got into that. Actually, I never got depressed and stuff like that. But,
What's the best advice you can give to someone who's struggling with losing a loved one?
I mean, you have to just understand that it's life. It's part of life. Sooner or later, any of us can go, right? It's just, and you have to accept the degree of Allah. So that's can say that's what helped me, I guess. Like knowing that whatever Allah does is good, and He gave me a mom for so long. Actually, if you think about it, she has been there for me for pretty much everything in my life. And what is painful is that she did everything she could for me. Now it was time for me to give back. I mean, I was set.
Yeah,
she set me up, so basically the time was for me to give back. It's right, so.
Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Is there nothing you can do for her now?
Keep hearing my dua and I do sadaqah and stuff for her and stuff. Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. You know, it makes me think how about my mom and just my situation a lot. You know, and how I'm taking this like completely for granted. You know. So I appreciate you sharing that story with me. It really means a lot to me, man. You know, I hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows me to do the necessary things for my mom, and that everybody else has the opportunity to do that while their mom's alive, you know. And at the same time, just like you mentioned, you know, just because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took her back doesn't mean that there's things that you can't do for her. There's maybe the things that you do for her while she's in her grave, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on her, is more important than what you could have done for her while she was alive. Right?
Maybe.
Allahu Alam. But maybe even this time, where even for us and individuals who are watching, making dua for her will be a source of light and relief and pleasure for her, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Because my mom's mother recently passed away as well, so I know the pain. Alhamdulillah. So just to kind of wrap things up, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, I want to know, what's the most important lesson you've ever learned in your life?
Well, you have tough questions that I usually don't think about.
I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah, definitely.
Alhamdulillah.
Most important lesson that I learned
In your life, yeah.
in my life.
That you felt to be valuable to.
Yeah. That's something I have to think about, kind of.
What comes to your mind?
So it's few things could be coming to the mind, where like not the most important thing, but maybe I can tell you something, then later I go reflect and then I say, oh, why?
Maybe it was something else. But at this point, what do you think is the most important lesson you've learned so far?
Some of the lessons I've learned in life is to be flexible, you know. Don't be rigid in such a way that so be flexible in terms of things coming up your way. Be flexible in terms of new challenges coming up, and adapt to it, and then find a solution that will adapt to address it.
Yeah.
Don't stay stuck in one way of thinking and stuff. And I mean, if I were not flexible, I wouldn't be able to basically even live here. It's just impossible.
It'd be extremely hard.
Be flexible in terms of even if you think about it, like you come from this country and city and country where everybody's like you, okay? Yeah. No different. Everybody's like you, and then you come to this place where it's basically a melting pot, and everybody's from everywhere. Yeah. Every nation is represented here, and so it's kind of, you see people doing things differently, and I mean you have to
adjust and adapt.
You have to be flexible in your thinking, you know, so that you don't say, hey, I've never seen this before, this is wrong, you know, and why are they doing this and this and that, and I mean,
that's an important lesson for all of us, mashallah. It is just adjusting and adapting and being flexible to your circumstance.
Right.
It's important, mashallah. So the last couple of things, the 3 nasiha. If you only had this opportunity to share your 3 nasiha, 3 advice to me, your family members, the ummah, what would they be?
Yeah, so I see now I understand the difficulty I'm having with your questions is because there are absolutes, meaning it's like the most or the best. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I can give you 3 advice. I don't know if they are the best or the most thing I want you to focus on and stuff. But one thing I will say first is be true to yourself. Meaning, for instance, I can give you an example. For instance, if you say you're a Muslim, just be true to it, right? Just do it to the best of your ability and stuff. Another one that I will share with you, which is kind of also related to this, and my mom used to tell me this a lot, and I don't know how I can explain this you will lose some of the beauty in translation, but it's basically like this. Okay, if you were to lose your life to be by drowning into the ocean, for instance, right? She will say then make sure you're drowning where the ocean is deepest. So meaning. Don't just, so if this is the ocean, you're not just dead here, right? Like at the beginning of it.
Yes.
So the lesson there is whatever you do,
Subhanallah.
Whatever you do it, give it the fullest.
Man.
Give it the fullest, right? So don't just be, okay, I have one foot in it, I don't have the second foot in it, I have one foot in it, something like that. If you want to do something, just go for it, right? After you thought about it and this and that.
Right.
So the last one, let me see, what else can I say? The last advice, look at me giving advice. I should be the one receiving advice, right?
Your
right.
advice
So I
is
think I'll leave you with 2.
2?
I'll leave you with those 2, inshallah.
Inshallah. Usually I like to get 3, but your 2 has it was heavyweight, mashallah. So jazakallah. If you can think about anything in the meantime, feel free.
If anybody needs advice, it's me. So I'm not used to giving it.
I guess we could say give yourself an advice.
Maybe, yeah.
Or look for advice. That could be the 3rd one, inshallah. Wallah, those are amazing advices, and oh man, I love the one that your mom gave as well. Be true to yourself and go all in and go all out. Don't drown in a small pond. You might as well drown. If you're gonna drown anyway, you might as well drown giving all the way in.
I mean, if you are into something, be in it. Just don't.
Yeah, it's a timely message. It's a timely message. Jazakallahu khair. How can people get in contact with you if they either want to just ask you questions or communicate? How can they contact you?
Maybe the best is my email.
Okay.
idifis@yahoo.fr. So that's IDYFILS at Yahoo, and then .fr, the French. For friends.
Okay, mashallah. So that's the way you can get into contact with him. As you guys see, his multiple passions. If you have any particular opportunities for him, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows, you could present it to him. Or if you guys would like him to work with you, you can do that as well, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. Before I ask you the last question, I want to acknowledge you and appreciate you. And I understand this is a challenge for me as well, that you don't acknowledge and appreciate someone more than it's due, right? But at the same time, our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam reminds us that if you love someone, tell them, right? And if you, the person who's not appreciative to the people is not really appreciative to Allah. So that's the premise that I'm using to acknowledge and appreciate, not to glorify and take things out of context. So all praise and thanks are due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But I want to acknowledge you for having pure intentions and sincerity. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make that a confirmed fact with Him and all of us. I acknowledge you for being an example of service leadership. There's something I want to mention, but I'll just keep that to myself, inshallah. But you're a really good example for me to follow in terms of service leadership, without any request attached to it. So I appreciate you being yourself in that area and being an example for all of us, mashallah, for the individuals that have noticed. I appreciate you being brave to accept this interview.
As you've noticed, I have zero presence online, so I don't.
Yeah.
You tell me how can you best get contact? I don't have Snapchat, sorry. I don't have Twitter, okay? I'm sorry. I actually have Twitter, but it's just set
It's
it
like
up.
just an account.
Yeah, just an account, right?
Yeah.
Facebook, just an account, okay?
Yeah.
I have it, but it's just an account. I'm not on it. So sorry, you cannot. I'm an old guy, okay? So you have to contact me through email.
Yeah.
And I don't really like being too much online. I mean, this is the hardest thing that I could do, actually. But
Alhamdulillah. And you did a wonderful job, and I know people will attest to that as well. So you did an amazing job. Hopefully, inshallah, within due time that I can have you back on, because I really, really appreciated this. And I learned so much. So I appreciate you and acknowledge you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom with us and being brave to share your personal stories with us, because that's really what inspires and motivates people, is the truth, the transparency, and the straightforwardness. So I appreciate you having that. I appreciate your presence. I appreciate the one that I appreciate the most out of all of them is you being an example for me and so many on what it means to give time to the Qur'an. Because everybody has the excuse of I don't have time, right? You go to school, you go to work, you got projects, you got all these things going on. But at the end of the day, you show me that I don't have any excuse. So I appreciate that. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, reward you and your family and allow every single part of your dream to come true. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on your mother, your father, all of the Muslimin across the globe, and everyone that you love. I truly love you for the sake of Allah. I truly do, wallahi. I truly do. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have that continue into the akhirah as well for us. Inshallah. Jazakallahu khair. Last question. I hope this is not absolute. This is more of, hopefully not an absolute. You can tell me if it is an absolute. But this is, I think, one of the most important questions in my life. As I've built the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the central focus of my life. And the Ridwanullah, meaning the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is so important. And I wanted to know, what does Ridwanullah mean to you?
The pleasure of Allah.
The pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What does that mean to you?
That's a tough question. Could you elaborate a little bit more on it?
What is your thought on pleasing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?
My thoughts on pleasing Allah.
Yeah. Or thoughts or experience, or what does it mean?
Right. First off, I've noticed everything in life that you do, it's kind of for yourself. A lot of things we do for our brothers and this and that, it's kind of come back to yourself, right? So me worshipping Allah actually kind of makes me happy too. It's like for myself too. I don't know how to explain this. But doing things for the sake of Allah and everything, just it's all counting on His mercy, and also being fearful of ending up bad. So we make dua for everybody else, for every one of us to have a good ending, right?
Yeah.
And here we're just doing our best, and subhanallah, I see it coming back one way or the other, right? First off, I mean, it makes my life so easy. I mean, it's amazing. So I don't get into any of these. I'm just a happy person, to be honest with you. And with that, I mean, alhamdulillah. And, yeah, that's kind of the way I see it.
Alhamdulillah. It's just a source of peace and happiness for you.
Yeah, having this source of, right, no, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah ala kulli hal.
Alhamdulillah. Idrissa, Jazakallah khair. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you. I truly enjoyed this, and I learned so much. I'm not gonna drown in the little pool anymore. I'm gonna go ahead first.
Go for it. Anything you do, go for it.
Alhamdulillah. It's a pleasure, Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you. Barakallahu feek. So, alhamdulillah. Just trying to wrap it up, inshallah. Idrissa is going to give us a challenge for our audience, inshallah. So, people learn something, but until you put it into practice, it's not going to work, right?
Right.
And out of all the areas that we looked at, I think the Qur'an is the most important one that we should focus on.
Right.
I want you to come up with a simple, actionable challenge within a day or a couple of days that people can engage in.
Right.
That will help them get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the Qur'an.
Right.
How can they do that?
So to be honest with you, everybody is at different levels, okay?
Yeah.
So what I will say is if you are, and I'm sure everybody has this thing in his thinking or heart and saying, you know what, I'm gonna start maybe learning Arabic. I'm gonna start maybe reading Quran. I'm gonna start maybe memorizing Quran.
Yeah.
But what happens usually is that what gets us is procrastination, and we procrastinate it, and we find excuses for it.
Yeah.
Excuses like, oh no, I really need the best teacher, so I'm not finding the best teacher yet.
Yeah.
And this and that.
Yeah.
For those people, I would say just start somewhere. Just start somewhere. For instance, for me, it was just the way I find somebody like to help me out was just I'll go sit down in this masjid and then just read the Quran the way I was doing it online, where I listen to the sheikh and then I read it myself. Yeah. And then this brother was there. He would listen to it, and so many mistakes. He was like, he will be shaking his head. Finally, I guess it got him, and then he started helping me, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, what I'm saying is, if you start, Allah will find you a way to make it easy. But you have to start. And so what that means is everybody's at different levels. If you've not started yet, start somewhere.
Yeah.
If you already started and you're only doing one page a day, try to increase it a little bit.
MashaAllah.
To the best of your ability. And don't belittle. And this is my third advice that I did not give you.
I like that. Okay.
Don't belittle the small things that you do, is what I will say. Meaning, stay consistent on it, as long as you're consistent. So what I mean by that is, if you can only read one ayah a day, read it. Don't belittle it.
Yeah.
Read it.
Don't
that
think
one.
it's nothing.
Don't think it's nothing. As long as every day you do that one ayah.
Yeah.
Because what's gonna happen eventually, it's gonna be 2, it's gonna be 3, and based on the hadith that say you come roughly, you come walking to Allah comes running to you, right? And you know the.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, do the effort, and then it will increase, inshallah.
So that's the challenge, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. An amazing challenge. So the challenge is, figure out how you can get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the Qur'an, what your starting point would be, and just get started. And inshallah, leave it on the comment below what your starting point is, so people can become a little motivated, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. My thing was when Imam Dr. Ziyad was given a lecture about the Qur'an and our iman and taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he mentioned, most of us let days pass by without opening the Qur'an even once. And he said, basically summarizing it like, that's kind of shameful, that we should look at just opening and even reading one verse. That's better than nothing. So that's our challenge to you, bi-idhnillahi ta'ala. And if you've liked this interview with my brother Idrissa, I've truly enjoyed it. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. And I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to put it on the scale of good deeds for my brother Idrissa, as well as myself and anybody else who's engaging with us. So if you've liked this video, please press the like button, and make sure that you subscribe to this YouTube channel for more amazing interviews like this, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, to help you maximize the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in every single area of your life, in this dunya and in the akhirah. And don't forget to press the notification bell to join our Ridwanullah family. And leave your comment below on what you thought about the most important lessons were throughout this interview, and especially with the challenge that we have for you, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Jazakumullahu khair, Ridwanullah family, for tuning in to another episode of Ridwanullah TV. I'm your host and life maximizer, Hussein Mahmoud, checking out by saying, never give up on maximizing the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in every single area of your life, in this dunya and in the akhirah, by the grace, will, and for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.